We're live, and we are. Told you I'd be back a little bit late, 7:15 or so, but I'm back, and we're gonna have another live show. We're gonna talk a little bit about project cars. I know I normally do that in the morning for project motivation, which we should all get motivated and get done. But the reason I want to talk about that is the thumbnail that I have up is exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about for projects. One, and I want to talk about the video that I just put up too on the all of the cam testing, so we can go over that a little bit more. But because this thing works right in with that. But this is a semi-classic Dodge truck with manual trans. I think it's an acing or something, manual trans. I can't remember. They were he and Chad were talking about it, but I don't remember what it was. But Junkyard LS, turbo, carbureted, blow through. You know, it's I'm sure all Matt over Sloppy Mechanics. It's got the wastegate welded to the turbine housing. You know, we've talked about that many times. Most guys normally do that for fitment. This engine bay looked like it had all kinds of room, but still super cool. Had header wrap. You know, it had all kinds of things. But what do you guys suppose the thing that makes this thing so cool? Is it the fact that it's a manual trans? Is it the classic Dodge truck? Is it because it's a carbureted LS? It's funny that you talk to people about carbureted stuff. They're like, guys that don't know any better. Why would you ever put a carburetor on there? That's a Stone Age stuff. That's boomer stuff. That's blah, 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 blah. It works. Especially the new Edelbrock carburetor, by the way, works very, very well. But the carbureted stuff, carbureted blow through stuff, we use it a lot. It works. Fuel injection obviously works. They all work. If you spend enough time making it work, it works. But carbureted, blow through, turbo, Junkyard LS, you know, header wrap, manual trans, engine swap. It checks off a lot of boxes. But what do you guys think? Let me know what you guys think. What makes this thing so cool? Oh, by the way, it's also lime green, which, you know, style points right off the bat for the brazen brazen paint scheme. I do dig that. It's kind of cool. As a matter of fact, I'm going to check out this photo again. I like the fact that he put a spacer underneath the bonnet to stand it off of the carburetor. I think that was a Mighty Demon carburetor. He's got a carb spacer under the carburetor. I don't remember what turbo it is. I want to say it was an S475 or a 7875 or something right around there. Very cool. He also, I should have mentioned, has an air cleaner on there, which is also good. And this is one of the viewers. I think he was at the MPMC conference, so I got to talk to him for a little while. And that car was, and it's a Mopar, it's a Dodge, so it's already weird, anyways. You know, for the guys that don't really get in near the love that all the Chevy guys and even Ford guys, Dodge guys of all of the domestic stuff are low man on the totem pole. Although of the big three, I think you could also argue that Pontiac and Oldsmobile and Buick and those guys probably also really don't get the admiration like the other guys do. But for the Mopar guys, they certainly know what it's like to be third place on a 3-tier podium. But this is cool. And I'll tell you what, the thing that makes it cool to me, I mean, all of those things are good. If you had something with all of those things, just one of those things would be enough for you to talk about endlessly. So if somebody sits down and says, "Hey, what's going on with your car?" Well, here, just have a seat. I'll be able to tell you like about 90 minutes or 2 hours worth of stuff, and you'll get tired of talking to me. But so all of those things are really good. But for me, what made it really cool is the fact that he drove it and drove up to us and said, "Hey, come here. I want you to check this out." I'm like, "Oh, I'm all in. It's a car thing, so I'm definitely going to come out and check it out." But the fact that it drove. So what makes that better than other stuff that is, guys will argue that it's fuel injected, that obviously has the wrong cam in it, that it has a transmission that's probably not as strong as it needs to be, that the turbo is arguably too big, all of these things, all of the things that the guys, all of the keyboard warriors will sit around and and complain about and tell you that you did wrong. And the very cool thing is this guy's out doing it. This guy's out driving it around. And that's what separates good projects from bad ones, and those are the ones that guys are actually enjoying. Don't get it right, get it running has been thrown around a lot. Freiberger's pretty famous for saying that. And that's the thing that I tell people all the time is it's much better to have it like, just put it on there. It doesn't matter that you have a camshaft and that another camshaft might be better. The one that you have will work. I don't care what you're doing with it. It will work. I don't care what you eventually plan to do with it. It will work. The good thing is that camshaft is already in a motor that's more than likely, if it's a running motor, it is a running motor, and you could just put it in and drive it around and then make a change later on after you try it. Yeah, I get those kinds of questions a lot. It's like, well, what if I went from this camshaft to this camshaft? I'm like, well, you may be able to whittle a little bit more peak power or whittle a little bit more low speed power, or maybe your idle quality would be better, whatever. I said, but you don't have a running thing, and you bought this other cam for it long ago. It's already in there. Just put it in there and drive it around. And then if you hate it, then make your choice. And the other thing that will happen is if you hate it, you can hate it while you're driving around. And also you'll have much more data on why you hate it and the thing that you would like to change. Because then you could come to us and say, hey, look, not just me, but anybody, talk to a cam manufacturer, whoever, and say, hey, look, I put this cam in. Here are the specs. It went straight up. Here's my converter. Here's my gearing, whatever, all these things that idles at this speed. You'll have all kinds of data for them, and they'll be able to go, oh, okay, well, I see what's going on there. So you want this other thing. So here's the cam that we can put you in. This will get you this other thing. If you just talk about the two camshafts, unless there are two camshafts that I've tested, but even if there are two camshafts that I tested, I could tell you what's going to happen to the power curve between whatever RPM I tested it at and whatever RPM I tested it at. But it's not going to tell you it's not going to tell you about drivability. It's not going to tell you about idle quality. It's not going to tell you about the sound that you want. It's not going to tell you how the thing feels while you're driving it around, how responsive it is, what kind of fuel mileage it gets, whether it works with your stock converter or not. It's not going to tell you that. But guess what? If you have a running project, it will do that. So every effort should go into just making it run. That's like when I was back with the guys at the car farm and we were doing the GLHS. It's really easy, especially given the 40 or 50 cars that are there, to get distracted. And I did. I got distracted on, oh, look, now I want to do Shelby seats in the interior, and I want this radiator and all this stuff. And eventually I'm just like, look, I came here not to put another transmission in my truck, but that's going to have to happen also. But that's going to happen after this car gets running. Along the way, Brian painted the engine compartment and threw the whole thing off. So now it's got to be all redone. But the goal was I wanted this car to be running. So I was going to be there until we had an engine together and a transmission, got it in the car and fire it up and drive it around. Then I would know that, hey, look, now if we're going to do other stuff with it, at least it can run and drive around. And for me, it's something that I could then use to generate testing with on a chassis dyno, which for me would be cool because it'd be different than the engine dyno. More than that, you guys know on this project, I wanted to be able to, and it had to be built a certain way because it had to be built all stock. So it wasn't just like a throw together thing. Oh, here's a cam. I don't care what cam it is. It is a cam. We'll put that cam in. Here's a head. We'll just put that head on. Here's a short block. Here's pistons, whatever. We'll just throw it all together. We don't care. It's all going to work. Or even if we, nitpicked everything and well, I like the G head better than I like the swirl head. But I wish I had a roller cam instead of a slider cam. And then, well, while we're here, we obviously need to port it. So, and then, well, if we're going to port it, why would we put a stock turbo on it? Let's put a good turbo on it. Well, why would you use a stock exhaust manifold? And you can see how it goes. It just snowballs. Should we use a one piece or a two piece? We're not going to use the log manifold. Should we use a better manifold? Yeah. Well, should we port match it? Probably. Should we go to the bigger throttle body? Well, that stock intercooler with this kind of turbo, it just doesn't even make sense. It doesn't flow enough. It's not going to cool enough. And pretty soon you have a completely built motor, and that's how it can happen. And it was very, very hard for that not to happen because, but I had to stay true to the goal. The goal on that one was to build a stock one, and we did. But also the goal was to And this is also very important for projects for like this one, because you want to be driving around, because you could drive up and go, hey buddy, take a look at this. This is really cool. I got a turbo LS carbureted truck with a wastegate mounted on the hot side. Perfect. There's nothing, that's nothing but great. And that's what I wanted to be able to do in the little Omni, as I wanted to be able to drive it around, and even if it didn't look great or whatever, I could drive it around, and I like those cars, so I would have fun in. And then also, once we went through the emission certifications and all that, and get it smog checked and get it registered, and be driving it legally in my name and stuff, then I would have checked off a box. Okay, that part of the project's done. That's cool. It's all done. Then I would have looked at other things. Hey, look, what are the shocks doing? What are the springs doing? What are what are the control arms doing? All of that stuff. How can I make this thing even funner now? Obviously more power is the first thing that everybody goes to, but there are other things too. Like for me, I would want that it already has conies on it, which is good, and springs and stuff. So I like a car that handles well. So I want this car to handle well. And even more important to that, I want brakes. I want the car to stop really, really well. I'd rather have way more brakes than I need for any situation, because then I can then I could drive aggressively and not have to worry about it not stopping, because it's very important. And that becomes a real safety issue once you go from 175 horsepower to 375 horsepower and go, oh look, I'm going way faster now than I was. So especially in a car that doesn't have a cage and all that stuff in it, you want to have brakes. It's very, very important. So for me, brakes are way before any of the other stuff. But for the projects, get it I don't care if it's a stock one, get it in and get it running. Go just look at all the hurdles. Okay, look, just it doesn't matter. Okay, flywheel, let's get a flywheel. Let's get bolts in there. Sand the thing. Whatever you got to do. Let's get a clutch in there. Let's put all that stuff in there. Get all this stuff and get it in. Let's get it started. Let's get it running. But it doesn't have this and it doesn't have this. Look, it will have that. It can have that later on. You can have that, but you could be driving around talking about all the cool things that you want to do, instead of sitting there or going online or talking on the phone or whatever, talking about all the cool things that you're going to do with your project. You could be driving around with your project, because even, let's face it, if you have a stock LS, even dogs are barking, even if you have a stock 4.8 and you put a turbo on it, it's going to be seriously fun. So even if you didn't get the right cam or the right heads or the right intake manifold, the right whatever, if you have boost on it, especially, even if it's an NA one, hey, the rise and fall of 8 cylinders in unison, there's something to be said for that. It sounds good. It feels good. It makes torque. It's gonna run well. And even with the little 4-point grate, it will be fantastic putting that in anything. And there's, like, when we started up the 2.2 Dodge motor, the first fire up is like, oh my God, that's fantastic. Look, it started. Then you're looking around for, like, what kind of thing is leaking at first. Is there water leaking? Is there oil leaking? Is there fuel leaking? Is anything on fire? Does it have oil pressure? Is the oil pressure still staying stable? Is the camshaft eating itself up? All of these things that you're worried about after you start it. But it just started up and just hummed along and idled nice and did all kinds of good things. So, there's just something to be said for getting it together, getting your project done. Not even done, because projects, quite honestly, are oftentimes not ever done. But if you can get it running, it's so much easier to get other stuff done once it's running. Because let's face it, if you get it running and the heater works, you can drive around during the winter and you can work on it. And then if you get cold, you can get in there and start it up, run the heater, and then you're all good. So I also want to talk about a little bit more about the testing that we did on the 5.3. I obviously am going to redo that test, because I was looking back at not that I wasn't going to anyways, but if we look back at the data on the test that I did, where we compared the 2050 oil versus I want to say it was 530 or 030 or something, where we changed the viscosity of the oil, we had a pretty big change in oil pressure, and we had definitely a measurable change in power. So given those two things, I think that I kind of expect that we'll see some kind of change in power. So here we go. It's 010 versus 2050. Yeah, so we definitely did see some power. 70 to 80. Yeah, so 10 or 11 horsepower with that oil pressure change. And that was a change. That was quite a bit. So that was about 30. No, 68. 68 and 93. So that was 25 PSI. So we're closer to 20 on the other one. So that's probably enough to make a difference. So, so again, let me know what you guys think. 20, if 25 PSI is 11 horsepower, how much is 20? Would it be some? And the thing that worries me even more than like an absolute power number is it inconsistent? Does lower oil pressure gain power? I mean, just what's really happening there? Okay, so let's see. Poll for tonight. It's very simple. Is your project car running? Be interesting to see. Let's get some Q&A going on. Car peeps. Tom's out. Tom's in, and then Tom's out. What's the peak horsepower for a stock 4.6 2-valve Ford? Well, I have power numbers for both of them. If I remember right, the 4.6 2-valve non-PI motor, which is rated at 225, the way that we tested it was about 260, I think. If I remember right, when we first started doing the cam tests. Modular Ford dyno, 4.6 cam test, stock NA, 266 is what, but that I think that had headers on it. Let's see. Yes, stock 225 horse 4.6. It was a 98 motor. No accessories, electric water pump, inch and 5/8 hooker, super comp headers. So it made 268 and 342 foot-pounds of torque on the non-PI one. And the PI one was rated at quite a bit higher. It was rated at 260 instead of 225. So we would expect that to be much closer to 300 the way that we run it. If only it was a boosted Magnum, also equally good. Infamous Nova, it's a 7875. I knew that it was one of those. Built, not bought. There's all that also. And he drives it everywhere. Infamous Nova's in the house. I enjoy driving an experiment. It might not be perfect, but I'm tinkering. That's good. Night Rancher, that's who it was. That's right. Hello. Hello. I have a knock at the door.
I have a visitor.
Oh.
A birthday visitor.
Hello.
And a birthday.
Oh, that's too tight. Okay, everybody say hi to the look. Hang on. They're dressed up. Look. You can't see their bows. You can't see there's his bow. He's dressed up, huh? Oh. My doggies.
Sit them down.
Here you go.
Sit them down.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Oh, what are we doing upstairs?
We're upstairs.
Cheers.
For your birthday.
It's for my birthday, which isn't till tomorrow.
I know, but you probably won't be on tomorrow.
Oh, I always am. Huh? Okay, go get mine.
Okay.
Thank you. We are the world. Okay. Radler cam. I don't think I've ever tried one of those. Go beverage. I have to keep that out of the way so I can read. Radler cam. Night Rancher, that's who it was. And that was the cool thing about NPMCs. I got to see some of the guy. Travis was there. I got to see some guys. I had a 383 with 882 heads and hated it. 882 heads are not fantastic. I used one of those electric exhaust cutouts as a wastegate. Got it hooked up to a switch. Cool. My first mods were always suspension, tires, good brakes. It makes sense. I mean, it does help. I know when I did my Mustang, we did the normal things like we did a K&N filter and move the distributor and that kind of stuff. But I did went through a couple of different suspensions, but we went through, we put conies on it and lowering springs, and I think I might have eventually done sway bars on it. What internals do you suggest? 6-liter Gen 3 block, Summit Racing, 1200 horsepower, max low, 1200 horsepower and low cost. That's a tall order unless you just do it stock. But the Summit Racing Pro LS stuff is good. You'll at 1200 horsepower, you won't hurt it from power. I asked a question earlier about the turbo after the Y pipe. Yep, that's stock. I like to try to make around 500 horsepower, would be a daily driver. What do I need to do? You just need to put a turbo on it that will support that, and an intercooler and injectors and a pump and a tune. 500 horsepower is easy to do even with a stock cam. So take a look at the stock stuff that I have. Is it a 6-liter or 5.3? What is it? It doesn't matter. You can still do it with either one of those. Lisa's in the house. She's reminding you about something. Second live for the day. That's right. Not sure if he'll be on tomorrow because we have dinner and cake. That's right. So actually, this will be my third one because I put another video up on the cam stuff. Oh, see, I didn't even see your thing that you were going to be bringing that up. At least I didn't see. I haven't scrolled down yet that far. What are the best coil springs to put in the front of an 86 Buick Regal? Does anybody have any idea? For a Cadillac, there's got to be big block springs for that, right? So I'm doing now. I got my cat eye for 600 non-running. I fixed it up. It's my daily. Now I'm slowly fixing a building. Currently attacking my lifter tick problem. So do you have an LS in it? Because an LS and a cat eye would be cool. Chopacabra truck cam, heads intake. Danny, I'm going to scroll back and see what you were talking about. Oh yeah, that all of that will be good with a turbo. MPMC was great. I don't see the fancy word. That's right. I have to put that up. Huh? I do have it right here. So put this up. So I'll put it right next to my YouTube one. There we go. Do you see that? Can't really see that though. It's kind of. I need to put a background on it. Will it fit right here? Oh, it will. There we go. So I need a dark background behind that, right? Put this Camaro book back here. There we go. Camaro muscle portfolio. Still doesn't show up very well. Off topic, there's a minute. Let's see. Did you Richard Craniums? That's what they changed it to. Did you ever do anything else with the GMC 292? I haven't yet. It's still sitting there. My project isn't running yet because I don't have a project. What's the matter with you? You should have 2 or 3, right? Todd, I was a bright guy hanging out all week with you. Well, Todd, I'm sure that you were the bright guy hanging out with us because I really didn't set the bar very high. Anybody have experience with the G-body tall spindle swaps and modifications? Anybody helping Terry out there? Richard, any comments on Race Tech pistons? Also, do you love power NA with gapped rings? Yeah, you set your ring gap even on NA motors, because let's face it, you're ultimately going to add boost to that. I think we have run Racetech pistons before in something. I have to go back and look and see what we ran it on. I've never had a problem with pistons, so I would have to say that they worked well. Let's see. Is it worth upgrading to a hydraulic roller kit over a hydraulic flat tablet for longevity? I wouldn't do it for longevity. If you take a look at factory small block Chevy stuff, I mean, hydraulic flat tablets with stock springs and all that stuff and stock RPM ranges last a long time. So longevity, I wouldn't do it. If you're upgrading the camshaft, then it's something to think about. You're definitely going to have to change springs if you do that. Is there an option to select for my project car running poorly and underperforming? Well, but that's what we call a baseline, and then you step up from there, right? That's how you make it better. You always want to start low though, because then when you make it better, anything better is better, right? So you've stepped up. My Cat Eye has an LR4 4.8. Nice. Hope to make 450 to 500 horsepower and keep it as a solid daily with some track time on the weekends. So you're running boost on that, right? 500 from a 4.8 is a tall order NA. If I use L92 heads with an LY6 intake, Gen 3 6 liter, will that work? Yes. Yeah, I have that. We ran an LY6 with, an LY6 is that basically. What turbo and intercooler you recommend for the Silverado? I don't know about an intercooler. I don't know one that fits that application, but you just need something that's going to support that power level. And if it's an air to air, then you really are choosing your intercooler kind of for fitment for the application, because most of the intercoolers are going to be they'll easily support that 500 horsepower level. And a turbo for 500, my go-to thing is that GT45. For Chrysler, which is more desirable, a Magnum or an LA? I don't think I would pick one of those over the other. I think I would just pick availability. I don't see it nearly as many LA engines in the wrecking yard as I do Magnums. And I think ultimately the Magnum head's probably a little bit better than the average LA motor that you're going to find. I was front-wheel drive guy wearing the orange during the dice game. Todd, is the dice game is reason enough to go to NPMC. Have you used an in-the-head style valve relief cutter? If so, brand or style to look for? I don't think I have, but I think I was there when Jeff Smith used one from valve relief. Oh, no, I take that back. I was thinking that we were talking about the valve guides, but I have used those. Iski made the one that I used, and I've used it a few times. I used it on a big block Ford because we were switching from Cobra Jet to Super Cobra Jet heads. And I've also used it on something else. I'm going to say it probably was a small Ford, maybe. Recently got my Dakota RT project running, CARB 360 Magnum. Well, it does run. When I attempted to give it throttle, it just dies. I'm a bit stumped. Go to the basic things. Check timing, check fuel, check fuel pressure, check the fuel bowl. Maybe tune the carburetor if it's a carb deal. Boosted 4.8. Yes, I'm running a GT45. Yeah, for the 4.8, that'll be fine. That's easy to make that kind of power. My project truck is running. Why? Because it's an ABZ 207 Classic Silverado. Richard, I meant, do you lose power gapping rings on an NA motor? We didn't. When I ran the 5.3, we didn't lose any power. And the thing that I would add is if you're doing a turbo motor and you put 28 thousandths ring gap in it, if you lost 3 horsepower or whatever it is, it's a small price to pay for what you're eventually going to be doing to it. How much piston to valve clearance do you look for when changing the cam? They'll tell you 100 thousandths, but I've run it much, much tighter than that. We've run it down at 3 or 4 thousandths. I don't recommend it. I was just going to kind of see what happened. Because what happens is when you're doing a piston to valve clearance test, you're doing it statically and you're not doing it dynamically. What happens while the motor is running, piston to valve clearance actually increases because you're going to have deflection in a lot of stuff. I don't recommend doing it at 3 thousandths, but 30 or 40 is more than enough. Think I'm going to buy an aerial. Nice. I like where this is going. A Magnum V10 swap it. Also perfect. And a 671, just icing on the cake. And a bigger cam. Where are you going to find a bigger cam for the Magnum V10? Does anybody make any? Travis and Todd getting together. See, just making connections here. So it's all about. Currently, I'm removing my 706 heads to have them ported. That's good. Stock block, truck intake, GT45 turbo, and a solid tune from Sound Performance. I'm excited to say the least. That's very, very cool. Does that thing have a turbo on it? Because if it doesn't, I mean, does it have obviously it has a turbo. Does it have a camshaft in it? Because that's what I would do before I'd port the heads. You can have the factory camshaft reground by Oregon. I want to do some stuff. They might be the guys that are doing the trophy 4-cylinder. Is reusing the roller lifters on a brand new rebuild a bad idea? I've always done a cam upgrade and replace the lifters. This time I want to reuse the cam. No, I would reuse the cam and lifters. I would reuse stock lifters all the time. Whenever we put new cams in, like a Gen 6 big block Chevy or any LS, it just gets the original lifters. Building a turbo 1,000 horsepower 5.3 like we do. Got everything but rods and pistons. I'll be towing about 10,000 on occasion, but can change boost level. What do you suggest when looking at Texas speed of their combos? They've got good stuff. The Summit Pro LS rods and pistons stuff which is all that you need. You can get to the limit of the block if you put rods and pistons in it. Oregon Cam, does all my factory roller regrinds have an awesome catalog of grind numbers to choose from? That would be cool. I live the Porsche world, and swapping P cars inspires some agitation. I put a 5.7 with a 232 240, ported 243s in a 911. 911s are real money now. I want a cam heads LS3 and a 944T with a live tire. That would be a good combination. I like 944 turbos. I think mostly because I got passed by one in the Silver State. I was not too happy in my 5-liter Mustang because I had a V8. But he had about 20 or 30 more horsepower than I did. We refurbish a lot of roller lifters and magnums from the junkyard and even a late LA roller block. That's right. The latest LA stuff is roller too, right? Because the new stuff that you buy is junk compared to the original. I should just be going and buying all of the junkyard LS motors and then just selling the lifters. I probably could make money, right? Boosted 4.8. I don't have a camshaft. I was asking you the other day about the torque cam, but do you want to go past 5,000 RPM? Is there a cam you suggest? Well, do you want to go past 5,000 RPM? The torque cam is the only cam I've seen. I mean, it's the only cam that I've seen. It's the only cam I've tested on a 4.8 that I think works pretty well, even at low speeds on a 4.8. Almost everything else loses power, including the Truck Norris cam is going to lose power down low on a 4.8. Shadow Ops, you have a what kind of puppy do you have? Tim, who are we going to get next time? Really thinking about the 07. Will the L92 heads benefit from LS6 springs? Because I want to run a Chupacabra truck cam. An L92 head, if it's factory, should already have 550 lift springs on it. If it doesn't, then you just need to put the blue or the yellow springs on it, or an aftermarket spring. I like the 914s. I got worked over by a 914 V8 swap back when I was in college, and I had my 260Z with a 280. You know, it was all hopped up. It had side drafts and a header, and I saw what, and that probably wasn't even real power. It's probably like a 350 horsepower V8 or whatever, and I got worked pretty hard. I also got worked pretty hard when I had my Camaro and the Z from a guy that had a 240 with a CarTech turbo on it. And it was the only one that we knew that was in town that was turbocharged, and it's pretty fast. CT525 in the jet boat keeps fouling number 5 plugged, uncoils and plugs, runs fine for a bit, then drops out. Do you have, is the injector stuck open? Hughes engine whiplash cam, 214, 214, 218. Let's see. I just zoomed past that. There we go. If you're using a booster pump with a boost operated Hobbs switch, when it kicks on, won't your air fuel ratio jump? Do you expect this and tune around it? Not always. It actually shouldn't change at all when the boosted pump goes on, because your fuel pressure is going to be determined by your let's see, fuel pump, line, rail, pressure regulator. So your system pressure is determined by your fuel pressure regulator. If it dropped, that means that you didn't have enough fuel flow. If you didn't have enough fuel flow, and then all of a sudden you kicked on your booster pump, now you have enough fuel flow, that will change. But what I would suggest is kicking on your booster pump before that happens. And then the only thing that will happen is your fuel pressure should not go up if your bypass has enough to bypass the extra fuel flow that would have been supplied by the pump when you increase the supply voltage. So all you're doing is making your pump now able to support a higher power level, but your regulator should take care of making sure that it's the same. And then your tune should still be your tune. Do you know of anybody who has tested the LS Sniper tunnel ram with a carburetor? No, I don't. The LS Sniper intake manifold that I have, I've seen a carbureted version of it, and they've tried that on a small block Chevy, and it's terrible. Is the Holley split intake better than the Holley strip dominator for bracket racing? Are you still talking about an LS? The Holley split manifold is pretty good, but I didn't know that they made a strip dominator for an LS. I think a ProCharge 07 in a 944 would be epic. Turbo is better. NA or supercharged 5-cylinder would sound incredible. German short hair pointer, very cool. His name is Thor. Nice. Oh, like your beloved Thor. The car that beat you with 20 more horsepower. I'm sure it had, because what was I'm going to look that up now. Because my Mustang was 225, but what would have been a 1989? 1989. 944 turbo. Those were 260 or something, right? So we're going to go 944 turbo. Let's go to Wiki. $968. Come on. You're killing me, Wiki. Okay, let's see. $247 and the Turbo S. That's all dumb. That's all dumb stuff. Let's see. He did the 944 turbo definitely had, and I don't know what he had done to it. He could have had intercoolers or an intercooler. He could have had more boost. I don't know what he did to it. It wasn't a whole bunch faster, but it was definitely faster in a straight line. But I'd always catch him in the turns. Unfortunately for me, most of the Silver State is not turns. What causes the motor to stop making power? 4 to 5,000 RPM boost goes up by 4 psi and the power goes down by 120 wheel horsepower. But from 5 to 6, boost goes up by 4 psi, but power only goes up by 50 horsepower. 4 to 5,000 RPM, the power goes down and then goes back up at 5 to 6. You have some sort of tuning issue there. Or does the boost go? The boost is going up. So you definitely have a tuning issue. I had two pit bulls I adopted. Very cool. 914s do handle well. We raced against a guy out at the Silver State, Carl Young, who was just freaking awesome. He's since passed away. But I have, and I tell my kids this story all the time about how cool Carl was, because I was like, yeah, your dad went out and raced at the Silver State like 12 years in a row and went really, really fast and blew his motor up at 193 miles an hour. They're like, oh, yeah, that's really cool. That's really exciting. I'm like, no, I said, I tell you what's cool. So we're driving out on Highway 318, which is where the race is. And I'm driving out with my buddy Jimmy and Bernie. He's got they have their Z's and I have my Mustang. We're driving out the race and we're driving, I don't know, 70, 80 miles an hour, whatever. We're in the middle of nowhere and we're driving along. We're just doing we're doing a caravan. We're driving, wow. And we see a car coming up behind us. We're like, oh, I hope it's not a cop. So we slow down a little bit. And no, it's Carl Young. And he is in a giant sized convertible Cadillac with the top down, pulling a little race trailer with his 914.6, which is originally a 914.6. It was very, very cool, with arm out the window, holding the beer, driving. He's going 100 in this convertible Cadillac, towing his little Porsche. I'm like, that's what cool is. We're like, look, we're not worthy. I mean, there's nothing that we can do. We could be young, we could be driving fast cars or whatever, and there's nothing we could do to be that cool. So I keep telling my kids, I'm like, there are guys like that, and there are guys out there that are like that. They're that cool, and Carl was definitely that guy. What do you feel about the limit of the LS3 block? I'm currently at 570 wheel horsepower. You're about halfway there, and just purchased a turbo kit. It has K1 4-inch crank, so it's a 416 or something. We normally go to around 1,000 for those. I like the BTR Stage 2 V2. Not a lot of chop, but a nice upgrade. Are the original lifters on the low mileage 60,000 mile 6.3 good for a Texas speed cam? Yeah, we run stuff that's 200,000 miles, and they still work. I'm surprised that they do, given the lifters have are like the end point for screening like bad stuff out. I'm surprised that they even work sometimes with as much garbage as in these are in these motors. The nice thing is when I did the 5.3, when I did the L33, I've now run a bunch of oil tests in it. So if nothing else, we've cleaned the motor out quite a bit. But it's the kind of thing where you have a junkyard motor like this and you take the valve cover off and you don't want to move the motor around too much because there's lots of stuff that's just hanging precariously and it will fall in if you shake it too much. Does anybody have a tuner for G-Hoff near Santa Fe, New Mexico? If you do, let him know. Oh, you have a carburetor? I would look at the fuel distribution on whatever manifold you're running. Russell, so you want a V8 914? This one had a small block in it, and I could tell by because we could see the balancer, the dampener on it. Those were actually balancers. You could see that on the V8. It was kind of cool. Just think about what any sort of modern aluminum V6 would be like in there. You know, you have a 300 or 350 horsepower aluminum V6 or an aluminum V8. I gave the name Thunder to honor Thor. I know I'm Norwegian. I get it. I know what Thor is. And Mjolnir. And Stormbreaker. In the process of porting my heads for my 94 Ranger 2.3, will I benefit with larger valves on a stock cam? You are not going to get all of the gains out of porting the head with a stock cam because it just doesn't really have the lift that you need. What normally happens when you port a head is it's harder to get gains in the low and mid lift, which is they're going to be most beneficial. Because like a stock cam might be, let's say it's 400 lift. It's easy to get big gains like a 500 lift or 600 lift, but the gains that you get at 200 are going to be less pronounced. But you might be able to get some. Any more 4200 testing coming? Yes. Should be a sometimes option on the poll. Yeah, I wish I had control over that. Building a Gen 5 LT416. 1800 is your goal. So are you doing a goals 1800 with a possible 350 shot just in case? Hoping to complete by this year? That's a lot of power. Have you done a set of ported, like home ported stock heads? The problem with that is that whatever I would do or whatever somebody else would do or whatever Brian Tooley would do, home porting, there's no consistency in that. So we don't know what the average guy can do. Can the average guy, can everybody do the same thing? If I get a set of heads, if I buy a set of heads from Total Engine Airflow or Edelbrock or Trickflow or whoever it is, there's a pretty good chance that anybody could duplicate that. So I don't know that they could duplicate what the average guy would do because we don't always know what the average guy can do. That's my excuse. May or may not be good. $247 for the Turbo S. Yeah, that's more than I had. I didn't get to see his boost gauge as he went by, but I'm sure it's pretty high. Got a BTR Stage 4 truck cam, Aaron. But it's not idling the best. I don't doubt that. Yeah, sorry to hear about the pups. I know that we lost our little girl not that long ago, but it's, it's still hard. I still have dreams about her. What's the weight difference between a Mustang and a 944? I don't know what the curb weight is on those. But at speed, since we were going 100 and 45 or 50 miles an hour, let's say, the weight really had very little to do with it. You purposely do a bad port job to see if you can lose power. You certainly can. You can make it too big, and you can make it flow poorly. I can't invest anything into the Porsche 4-cylinder 2.5. Can you turbocharge the NA Porsche? How are there people doing that, or did they just get a 944 turbo instead? A 944 turbo probably is still not a cheap date, right? Michael, happy to help, man. I sold my 2.5 a few weeks ago after about my 87. Someday I want to put a turbo on my International 656 gas engine. Richard, would upgrading the throttle body from a 76 to a 92 on a factory truck manifold help make power? No, don't worry about that. Especially not on a turbo deal. It's a waste of time. Hey boys, I'm late, but made it. The truck in the thumbnail is it a mud truck? No, it's just a drive around truck with an LS swap deal. Carbureted LS. All right, Sean, we'll see you later, man. The GLH is driving around with a new shifter and clutch and all that. 928s need something. The electrical is what scares people. Have you seen the relay fuse panel on a 928? No, I haven't. I do like 928s. I especially like the 928 GTs and S's and all those. I have my 928 books and I've oohed and awed over that and looked at them. But it would be cool to have one of those with a, like a 500 horsepower LS in it would be cool. But what I really want even more than 928 is the old BMW M5. With an LS in it. Even just an NA one. I have a 5.3 Silverado. I was wondering if I could do a 400 shot if I built the motor, would it hold? We've run 300 shots on stuff, but I don't know why you'd want to run a 400, especially not a stock one, because the stock motor is not going to ingest 400 horsepower with the nitrous. Richard, I really dig the Omni. Nice. Points. Yeah, Russell, those are transaxle cars, right? The transmission is. I wouldn't have any problem cutting a tunnel in one of those. But an LS swap 928, imagine that would be cool. J Series 914, that would be good. Night Ranger was here earlier. Does he go by different guys? Have you seen benefits to a custom car versus a good Holley Ultra HP? Actually, I've used Holley HPs a long time, and the Ultra stuff is really good. I really like how lightweight the aluminum body stuff is, but the new Edelbrock carb is the real deal. Richard, didn't you talk about the placement of the wastegate welded onto the exhaust housing itself? I did. What I've said is mostly that's done for fitment, so that it fits in different applications. I rub a quart of transmission fluid in my engine the day or a few days before I change the oil. Very clean. Where do you rub it? And should you be telling us that? Is it? do you need a moment? Oh, run. Okay. That's a whole different thing. If there's something you could do to get a J series or rev more, that's pretty easy. Ported heads, cam, short runner intake. And you're going to be seeing J series videos coming up very quickly. Nicholas, so you got low compression on your test motor. Luckily, junkyard, just a few miles away. The GLH is coming along fine. I think I talked about that. Are you going to be able to test the new Hurricane twin turbo engine? Probably not, because I'm not like high dig like that. I can't even do coyotes or anything. Got a suggestion of putting 0.20 in the pistons for a few days. You're putting 0.20 weight oil in it? For what kind of application is that? Please tell me it's some kind of late model thing. Richard, what's your favorite truck cam you like personally, even though they are similar? I don't have a favorite one because the truck cam that I like is the stock one. That's the one I have in my truck. Second project car, 69, SS396, El Camino. Nice. My dad had a 67. He keeps telling me it was a 64, but I think it was a 67. But it was a 375 horse 396. The Porsche 924, 928, 944s had torque tubes with a transaxle in the back. I think that they do. What's better for a small build and future upgrades? LQ4, LQ9. Both of those work great. There's no difference in those. One of them has a little bit more compression than the other one. Would you do a Holly car versus new Edelbrock Holly 750 knockoff? The new Edelbrock is not a Holly 750 knockoff. It's actually better. My truck is just a turbo 4.8 4x4 daily driver. Nice. See? He's here, man. He's famous now. .944 NA engines are bad news. The spec racers seem to have a hard time making it through a season. Built engines by reputable builders go for big money. Oh, no thanks. Pass on that. I want it's probably like an 80s M5. Let me see. I'm going to take a look. I saw one the other day when we were taking Milo out for taking him for a walk. Oh yes, it is 80s. It's 1984 to 88 is the one that I like. To quote my good buddy Bernie Van Hammond and crew chief for my world challenge, for my ill-fated world challenge running, it's very snarky. Not a lot of info on a dyno, even spoke to Edelbrock and they had little to provide. Michael, it is it's probably 5 or 10 better. Nicholas, the motor's forged piston 2.2 liter Dodge Turbo. That's good. I like that. I like the way that sounds. J-Series videos on the engine dyno or chassis dyno. We have chassis dyno. I probably will do engine dyno stuff, but we have chassis dyno and it swapped into an NSX. What editing software do you use for your videos? I use something called Video Shop. Would upgrading to a new dampener? Richard, did you figure out the timing spike in that 2.5 liter? We haven't figured it out yet. No, I think we have a handle on it, but I won't know till I go back down there. The J-Series stuff is awesome. I mean, the reason that Jimmy chose that for the NSX is that the NSX motor, the C-Series stuff, is way too expensive now. Yeah, I wouldn't hesitate recommending the Honda or the Edelbrock carburetor at all. It's very, very good. Is your project car running? Yes, only 48%, 52% saying no. See, that tells us we need to get them running. Although I have to say, the GLH is running mostly with thanks to the guys at the car farm. Although it was running when I left, it just wasn't shifting very well. The 240Z, not running. The 5 liter Mustang, not running. The daily driver Silverado, definitely running. So I'm halfway there, right? I have 2 out of 4 running. And on that note, it is time to go. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will be back tomorrow morning, and I'm going to have another video. I have a video coming up on how I repaired the. For some reason, guys love to see this stuff. Some of the highest views I've got on Instagram and Facebook are me just drilling stuff, which seems weird, drilling and tapping stuff. So I did a video on, while I was repairing I helicoiled the threads for the cam retaining plate on the all aluminum L33 and fixed that. I decided to do a video on it, so I'm going to put that up. And then after that, I should have the Alex Taylor interview, which was a lot of fun. So I'm excited about putting that up. I will see you guys all tomorrow. Bam, 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 bam.